Russia condemned the action of Israel.
Territory, following the Israeli leadership's announcement of a decision to escalate hostilities in the Gaza Strip, envisaging its occupation. We thank Assistant Secretary General Miroslav Yencha and the head of the OCHA office in Geneva, Ramesh Rajasingham, for their briefings. The other day, the world found out the shocking news that the Security Cabinet of the government of Benjamin Netanyahu had taken the decision to introduce forces into Gaza and to bring the Gaza Strip under the total control of the Israeli security forces with the aim, as the Israeli cabinet said, of defeating Hamas. These actions by the Israeli leadership are a gross violation of international law. They demonstrate their blatant disregard for the appeals of the international community and the decisions of the UN Security Council, and they deal a very serious blow to the prospects for the two-state solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We roundly condemn the intentions of the Netanyahu government to seize Gaza. In this context, we join the calls upon West Jerusalem to refrain from such extremely dangerous steps which undermine the already fragile prospects for the peaceful settlement to the Middle East conflict. We insist on Israel's strict compliance with the norms of international law and the well-known legal basis for the Middle East peace process, including the relevant resolutions of the UN General Assembly and Security Council. We also recall that Israel's plans run counter to the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice of the 19th of July 2024, which inter alia unambiguously requires that West Jerusalem immediately put an end to the occupation of Palestinian lands. Moreover, the adoption of this plan essentially indicates the official and public recognition by Israel of its aims to seize and occupy the enclave. As is known, after separating from Gaza and the withdrawal of Israeli settlers from there in 2005, the Israeli leadership said that there was no state of occupation, which was not in line with the international legal interpretation, given the continued Israeli control over the perimeter of the Gaza Strip, its airspace, and its coastline. It turns out that over all of these years, Israel had been carrying out and is now intensifying precisely such an occupation of Gaza, with all of the resulting obligations to protect and provide for the civilian population, which are binding and which should not depend on the wishes of the occupying party, as stipulated by the norms and principles of international humanitarian law, including the Fourth Geneva Convention. Mr. President, literally a few days ago, here in this Council, upon the initiative of Israel, we had a detailed discussion of the situation of the Israeli hostages in Gaza. The majority of the members of the Security Council clearly and unambiguously stated that one of the main preconditions for the release of all detained persons is an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. It is thanks to pauses in the bloodshed and active diplomacy, rather than the reckless intensification of hostilities, that over the course of 18 months it was possible to get more than 140 people out of the enclave. Unfortunately, West Jerusalem once again has not heeded the appeals of the global majority, nor sensible voices within Israel, nor the relatives and families of the hostages themselves. Instead of a negotiating process, the Israeli authorities have decided to opt for a further escalation of violence, thus jeopardizing the security and lives of the Israeli hostages, who, as we have seen, are in already unbearable conditions that are made worse by the acute shortages of food and water in Gaza. It turns out that the Foreign Minister of Israel, who was here on the 5th of August, hypocritically shed crocodile tears in this chamber over the fate of the Israeli hostages, and he already knew that the Israeli cabinet would soon take this decision, essentially ruling out the possibility of them returning home alive. By all accounts, Mr. Saar needed to lay the groundwork for it and to put out the image in the media of the solidarity and sympathy of Security Council members, so as to then be able to continue killing Palestinians. Such an attempt to manipulate the Security Council for domestic Israeli interests beggars belief, just like how the Jewish people that faced the Holocaust in the Second World War can today put Palestinians in a ghetto and pursue their total destruction. How quickly the lessons of history are forgotten. It is also clear that the implementation of the Israeli leadership's plans to fully clear the enclave would even further complicate the humanitarian situation in Gaza, because essentially they have already announced further mass forced displacements and thus the suffering of the civilian population, further casualties and more blood.
Did you know you can now earn even more? The more glasses you have, the more paid watch time you get. Now you don't have to wait for them to recharge. Just swap glasses while scrolling and keep earning rewards non-stop.
Article 2C of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide of 1948, which Israel ratified in 1950. Mr. President, in conclusion, I would like to note that the day before yesterday, in an interview with an American television channel, Benjamin Netanyahu spoke about his intention to create an alternative administration in Gaza, which would give Gazans, I quote, a different future. This administration, according to Netanyahu, wouldn't be Palestinian. That, in turn, also contradicts numerous widely accepted international legal understandings about the Gaza Strip as an integral part of a future Palestinian state. For our part, we suggest considering some rhetorical questions. What sort of future can people have under occupation? And what do they have to say to the families of the more than 60,000 dead who no longer have any future? How many more Palestinians need to die before this inhumane slaughter ends? And how much longer can they turn a blind eye to this outrage, those who consistently and comprehensively support Israel and prevent the Security Council from acting? For our part, we consistently and unchangingly have advocated for a diplomatic solution to the Palestinian question on the basis of the two-state for two peoples formula. If implemented, Israel's legitimate security concerns would be satisfied, just as the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people to their own state would also be satisfied. The alternative to this is the death of tens of thousands more entirely innocent people, including the Israeli hostages that have been held for almost 2 years. The UN Security Council quite simply must prevent this outcome. I hope that, at long last, Washington will realize this soon. For the time being, as we understand it, despite the assurances of the State Department that they are continuing real and serious diplomatic efforts to end suffering in Gaza, to release the hostages and to achieve a permanent peace, end quote, the United States quite simply is washing its hand and is giving West Jerusalem carte blanche to have full freedom of action in Gaza. Thank you for your attention. Mr. President, we are disappointed that the Panamanian presidency ignored the request of the majority of members of the Security Council, including the Russian Federation, to convene an emergency meeting immediately, and took the decision to only hold it today, despite the extremely dangerous developments on the occupied Palestinian territory, following the Israeli leadership's announcement of a decision to escalate hostilities in the Gaza Strip.